Hey there, this is Pastor Dan, First Alliance Church. Thank you for watching this video. In this video I plan to talk about some of the various questions that came up at our conversation this past Sunday about the community center, the cafe, the clothing opportunity for children's clothing, how this fits into the big picture of ministry, and a few other things. So it will probably be broken into some sections, and it could be a little long, so it might be that I'll divide it into pieces, and I'll try to title it so you can go to the ones that you might care about a little bit more. I do want to let you know that as I talk through it, I talk through it as someone who believes in it. So it's not that I'm trying to persuade you as much as I want you to see that I believe in the idea. And I believe in its merits. I feel like this is something that God has opened up for us, given us, put on my heart, my mind, the dreams that I have for the future church. And so as I answer, if I seem a little like I'm pushing, I'm not really trying to be pushy as much as I just really believe in this. And I just feel like God is saying this is a good thing for this period in the life of our church. I know there are obstacles. I know there are differences of perspectives on the divider, on serving coffee, on the restrictions it's going to create. But I don't think any of those are reasons not to do it. I think those are just part of the challenge of living life. And so I'll come back in just a second, and then I'll dig into some of the questions. So a huge thank you to Keith Tucker, who was our first speaker on Sunday, and he asked the question, will anyone leave? Well, I don't think anyone will leave, but I'm more concerned about our church family pulling away from this opportunity. Even if we disagree about the direction, but we agree that it's valuable. So it would seem imperative that we each find a way to use our gifts and maintain the unity of our body. So I don't think anyone will leave, but I'm concerned that the differences of perspective about how we use the resources that we have and what is and isn't acceptable could be hard. And I hope that won't be. Perhaps we can agree that God cares about our community and wants them to experience His kingdom even as we have, and that He's provided these resources that we should use wisely, even if some of the definitions of what wisely may differ. But our calling to use them in a way that glorifies God, that helps people learn about who Jesus is, that encourages them to follow, that helps them join in and see that there's room in the church for them, and that goes to people, those are all things that align with Jesus' mission. His second question was, what will the cost be? What will the cost be for these utility expenses? As Richard Hines said, our electric and our gas resource expenses will increase some. So how will we staff it? Staffing is certainly a concern. Most all of what we do at church, because of our small numbers, we always try to do so that we can manage it with less than 3 people. Now, sometimes we have lots more than 3 people, but we always try to do it so that if worst case scenario, we could do it as low as 1 or 2, but 3 is ideal. I believe that there will be people who are excited to come and staff the facility and see who God brings into our space. It has been my plan and my commitment to staff the space myself Tuesday through Saturday mornings from 7-ish in the morning to about 11 or 12, moving my morning routine from my home to the church. So I think staffing will be a challenge, but I don't think it's something that we ought to say no to the idea because of staffing challenges. I think we just have to figure out how do we do it in a way that doesn't kill us. And I think I'm part of the solution to that. I heard some folks talk on Sunday about their excitement about using their gifts and their talents. And I envision this cafe and community center and an access opportunity to give more people more opportunities to use their gifts and talents for the Lord. From counseling to baking and cooking to fixing stuff to crafting to reading and working with children, clothing, people who are outside the church or aren't able to come can participate. Maybe it be something for families, computers, Wi-Fi, doing arts and crafts. There might be other things that we haven't even thought of, from career support or access for we talked about internet already. So those are some pieces about using our gifts and our talents. And the question of, wouldn't it be less expensive to do rooms in the education building? I know this feels complicated because it's hard for us to imagine the impact of a divider. It will be a nicely built, semi-portable, 8-foot tall divider. There will be a 10-foot space in the middle that will be able to open up to allow us to go in and out depending on what is needed. It will look nice, and I believe will expand the use of our space rather than restrict us. The divider has multiple purposes, from containment of children to securing equipment on the stage, like mics, decorations, caring for the piano. It also reduces the largeness of the room so that it feels more people-friendly. It's a place to add strategic art or pictures that tell stories of the scriptures and communicate a message. This could even be the foyer that we never had, where we can gather and mingle and interact before and after service. It will be another place in the back of the church where we have the opportunity to connect with others. I've also heard multiple questions about why not use the education building. While it seems intuitive to use the smaller space over there, I'm not sure. It seems like it could be more difficult because of its location. The distance from the parking lot to the education building is a long way. While we would walk there because of our connection to the church and our relationships, this creates a barrier to entry for people who aren't part of our space. And then there's the issue of staffing. It's more difficult to staff a building with multiple rooms than it is to staff one room, which goes to the containment challenge. And then there's the multiple room access concern. While one solution would be to lock all the doors in the hallways, it does seem as if we're adding barriers by making it appear that we're locking people out until they get to the point where they're let in. It does not seem to promote a sense of openness and relationship to lock all the doors until they walk through the right one. Now, fourthly, if we're thinking about COVID issues, gathering people in one large space with significant air supplies would certainly seem safer and less dangerous than putting people into smaller spaces. And if we're adding in the impact of the kitchen, even if we come up with something that functionally allows us to keep things cold, it makes it more difficult for a small staff to manage the day-to-day pieces. Besides, it's much more inviting to enter a building where folks smell the wonderful smell of cookies and coffee cakes and sweetbreads baking. So if we expand that and say, well, let's think about the need to have access to the whole sanctuary. Well, the whole sanctuary space will continue to be available when the need arises, because the dividing partitions will be movable. If something that is that important comes up, we'll move what we need to move. We take care of each other. That being said, it would seem that, given the number of times we pack out the room, the sanctuary space, the amount of usable space that will continue to be available will accommodate all the activities in our foreseeable future. Now, there were some questions about researching the cultural relevance. Is there a desire for folks to come to a coffee shop? Some concerns about using God's money, and will people come to coffee? Good questions. I just don't know if they'll come. I do know that they've come to other things that we've offered, whether it's produce or gardening or meals or basketball hoop in the parking lot. I do believe people will come and shop at our children's clothing space. I do believe people with children will attend reading hour and probably stay and drink a cup of something so their kids can play together. So I'm not sure about how to respond to it being culturally relevant. We do have a rising economic culture in our community where people have some money and they do enjoy being out and about. People in our community certainly drink coffee and have families. So it would seem that our goal is to make it culturally relevant, a place that people would feel valued and encouraged and supported and blessed, a place that offers supportive opportunities that speak to finding peace, managing money, dealing with conflicts, building strong marriages, perhaps returning to other addiction programs, child-rearing classes, discipline classes. All these topics relevant to people across most cultures and certainly in ours. Thinking about the idea of using God's money, particularly using God's money in an unproven idea like this. I suppose it depends on what the funds accomplish and how we understand faith. If the money we spend opens up doors to the gospel, we would agree that it certainly wouldn't be wasteful, even if the cost was twice what I've proposed. If we view the needed funds as a means of exercising our trust in God, the decision to trust God is always pleasing to Him. So we can respond by faith, and that brings us into alignment. And even if this costs $10,000, and I don't think it will, this is such a small token of the wealth that is given to us to manage. Within our fellowship, we are called to be good stewards of the kingdom of God, and we could easily collect $10,000 and never dent our family's standard of living. Miss a house payment, skip our car payment, or fail to eat out, or at home with as much abundance as we've had over the last 12 months. Stewardship is using God's money for things that God values. And I would say that God values people in our neighborhood. God values building relationships with people. And God values faith. So an investment into these three things would be in line with something God would say is worth spending money on. Well, this is what missions and our missions-oriented friends do every day. Last year, we gave over $40,000 to missionaries so that they could find ways to build relationships, to talk about Jesus, to listen to people's problems, to open up the scriptures, to pray with people. So it's hard to see how missions wouldn't be responsible. And this is certainly a mission adventure. This isn't just a church adventure. This is about building relationships with people so that we can help them see and know who Jesus is. What about the unprovenness of the idea? We haven't seen this anywhere, and this wall and coffee shop and cafe doesn't exist anywhere. And my answer to that is most every faith pursuit is unproven. Every one. The children of Israel stood on the edge of the promised land, and the 12 spies came back, and it was unproven. Some looked and said, it's impossible. It's too unproven, and we can't do that. Some people looked and said, yeah, there are obstacles, but I think God can take care of doing what He wants us to do. And in that case, God had said, I want you to go. Now, they didn't know if they could go. They just believed that God would work it all out for them. They weren't being presumptuous. They just believed God said they should. That they should go in and take the land and trust God can take care of them. And I'm saying something very similar. I don't know how it's all going to work, and I don't know how proven it is. But I feel like trusting God is always the right decision. Asking Him for help and praying for wisdom. And we've been praying for wisdom on these Sunday mornings at 9 and other people at other times as well. But the idea of walking by faith demands that we do things that are unproven. And even though the idea is unproven, let me assure you that the details have been calculated. The costs have been weighed against the potential benefits. We've thought about this and we've discussed the various challenges throughout our history and relating to our neighborhoods. And even though it's unproven, it's highly likely that this will give us better relationships and increase our influence in our neighborhoods. 5 years ago when I went around and visited with each of the families, or many of the families of the church, I asked this question: would our neighbors care if we sold our building and turned it into affordable housing? If we sold our property, would anyone care? Most people said they didn't know. The truth was, back then, our neighbors probably would not have cared if we had sold the building. We would have, but they wouldn't have. However, over the last 5 years, we have made significant strides and impacts. Our neighbors now would care. They would say, we miss the produce truck, and we miss seeing people from that church. We miss the meals that they provide. We miss how they care for us. Now, sure, there's room to go. More, deeper, wider, longer. There's more, but we've made such a great dent that we are present in the neighborhood, and people see us as being part of the fiber of what makes our neighborhood part of the neighborhood. And this is one more step to cross those barriers so that they know that Jesus loves them and He cares about their problems and He loves their families. Of how will we connect with Meredith? How can we assist, encourage, or work together with Meredith? Sue Tucker asked this question. There is room, and it is our intent to find ways to build supportive relationships with Meredith and her students through the opportunities presented within our local community center. That includes some English support, some conversational English. It might even include some other creative things. It could even include Northridge or other churches in our area who also want to have a connection, a relationship with Meredith in Kosovo. Jean made the comment that there is tremendous value in first-person connections with people who are working out of the country and in other fields. One of the other questions that came to mind is the question of how would this help us with our invitation challenge? So we have a challenge with inviting people to come and join us at church and in our spiritual journey. And one of our challenges that I've mentioned at our annual meeting is that we do not have a culture that supports inviting people into our church space. Although we have a remarkable church in a space with good people who are supportive and loving and discipling and engaging, having a community center and a coffee shop may create other access points that might make it easier for you and me and other people to invite someone to come join them at the church. It's much easier for you to say to someone, hey, let's go get a cup of coffee. My church has this new coffee shop. I'd love to show you. It's way easier to say that than to say, hey, would you like to come with me to worship? Over the last 5 years, we have discovered is that we're not real good at inviting people to worship. And maybe this will make opening side doors easier. As Lewis mentioned, We certainly envision having multiple Bible studies throughout the week in our space. We envision praying for people and having prayer gatherings throughout the week, online and in person. And these gatherings could become little church groups where we worship and pray and look at the scriptures and talk about reaching people in our neighborhoods. Sure, the people might be part of other churches, but if they share our passion for taking the kingdom of God into our neighborhoods, wouldn't it be exciting to partner with them and to do it? Because God has given us a responsibility for the people who are around our church. One of the things that we've not talked about a lot is our longevity. We are needing to reverse our attendance trend. If you plot our attendance over the last 10 years and you continue to trace the line, you can see that it's vital that we take risks for the kingdom. We do want to do everything we can this year to reach people, and we need to reach the younger generation. Some of the things we're working on trying to open up through this cafe and community center has the interest of reaching younger people. Because we have a wonderful generation of older folks who are marvelous at sowing into and listening and encouraging the next generation. But we need to get them in so that we can do all that. Now, I'm happy for us to do something else, but I feel like this cafe and community center is a good step, as good of a step as any other. We're not violating any biblical teachings, even though we're attempting to do something a bit unorthodox. We're trying to use what God has provided because we're rich in physical resources and faith and maturity. You know, this opportunity, as I talked to God about it even this morning, He brought me to a text that I found interesting. Luke 5, where Jesus says, "One day as Jesus was standing by the lake of Gennesaret, with the people crowding around him and listening to the words of God, he saw at the water's edge 2 boats, left there by fishermen, who were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little from shore. And then he sat down and taught the people from the boat." Luke 5, verse 4. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into deep waters and let down the nets for a catch." "Let's go fishing, Peter." Simon answered, "Master, we have worked hard all night. We haven't caught anything. But because you say so, I'll go let down the nets." When they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. And they signaled to their partners in the other boat, "Come, help us." And they came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. So when Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, "Away from me, Lord, I am a sinful man." For he and his companions were astonished at the catch of fish they had taken. And so were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, Simon's partners. And then Jesus said to Simon, "Don't be afraid. From now on you will catch men." So they pulled their boats up on shore and left everything and followed him. As I read this morning, what jumped out at me was that for 5 years we have tried. We have been fishing, and we haven't found a whole lot of success. And I feel like just maybe Jesus is saying to us, put the nets down on this other side. And he's asking us to trust him. And we don't know how it's all going to work. We don't know about all the money that's involved. We don't know a lot of stuff. But we do know that if Jesus has impressed on us this is a good way to travel, we ought to respond by faith. And in this case, Peter did that by letting down the nets. Now, he didn't know what he was going to catch. But boy, did it surprise him. And I just wonder if maybe part of this next strategy of this community center and the cafe is about catching more people. Coming to a place where we have relationships and we engage and we love people. And God brings them into our harvest, his harvest. And he uses us. We just might be surprised. I just might be surprised. Thanks for being part of this conversation. We're going to continue the conversation on Sunday. I hope you'll join us. Bring your thoughts, your feelings, your perspectives, and let's talk about it. Let's see what God is bringing us together to do. God bless.